Bear with me with these different microphones. They're different everywhere we go. Sometimes they're better than other times. Can everybody hear me? Okay. We had a discussion ahead of time, and Dr. Gall, who's the demographer for the commissioners appointed by the minority, will give her presentation to us at her will. Dr. Gall, we can't see you, but we can hear you, I'm sure. Oh yes, Michael, excellent. You want to call the roll? Thank
you. Thank you, Chairman. The office roll call. Commissioner Peter B.
Present.
Commissioner John Reinhardt.
Here.
Commissioner Maureen Fitzgerald.
Excuse.
Thank you. Commissioner Christopher Devane.
Here.
Commissioner Eric Millett.
Here.
Commissioner David Mejias.
Here.
Commissioner Jared Cashow.
Here.
Commissioner Andrina Wyatt. Here. Commissioner James Megan Jr. Commissioner Michael Pernick.
Here.
Chairman Frank Maroney.
Present.
We have a quorum, sir.
Okay. Dr. Gall, we're at your command as to when you wish to start.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Could you get it closer to your mic?
Okay, I'll try to talk a little bit louder. Is that better?
A little.
Can we raise the volume a little? Or? Can we raise the volume on the all the way?
Give it your best, Doctor.
I'll do that. My name is Dr. Megan Gall. I'm the principal at Blockwell Consulting, and I've prepared an analysis of the Nassau County legislative districts. I want to thank you for the opportunity to be with you tonight and to share these results. Just a quick note on my credentials. I have a PhD in political science. I have a Master's of Science in Geographic Information Science, which is high-tech map making. I'm a certified GIS professional from the GIS Certification Institute, and I hold a research associate appointment with the University of California, Berkeley. I've worked in voting rights since 2014, and I opened Blockwell Consulting in 2021. My past clients or current clients have included Strumwasser and Wucher, which was the counsel for the California Citizens Redistricting Commission. I was the sole statistician for that project. I have also been an expert for the U.S. Department of Justice, national nonprofit law firms, private law firms, state-level secretaries of state, and numerous level jurisdictions, including cities, counties, and special jurisdictions of all sizes like yours. I had a set of instructions for my analysis. First, I was to perform a nonpartisan analysis in all respects. I was asked to analyze, if any, patterns of racially polarized voting in Nassau County. I was asked to confirm that compliant alternative districting configurations are possible, and if so, to draw a compliant plan based on the law and districting criteria. I was asked to analyze any proposed districting plans for compliance with federal and state law. And finally, I was asked to provide a complete written report with my findings and conclusions. Summary of findings, and then we'll go through these in more detail. The Nassau County elections show patterns of racially polarized voting. Black and Latino voters generally vote cohesively in support of the same candidates. White voters generally vote as a bloc in such a way that typically defeats the minority preferred candidate. Second, it is possible to draw a map that complies with all federal and state legal requirements and also contains 5 majority-minority districts in which the combined Black and Latino voting age population, which is 18 plus, is above 50%, and the citizen voting age population is also above 50%. And without these majority-minority districts, Black and Latino voters will usually be unable to elect candidates of their choice. Let's move into the analyses. First, a little bit about the demographics of Nassau County as a whole. Between 2010 and 2020, there has been population growth of over 56,000 people. That has been accompanied with a rather dramatic decline in the white population. You can see in the chart here that the white population dropped nearly 100,000 people, which is a drop of nearly 10% from 2010 to 2020. That drop was accompanied by significant growth in the Asian and Latino populations. Asian population specifically grew over 61,000 people, and the Latino population also grew over 61,000 people. The Asian growth rate over the past 10 years was 61%, and the Latino growth rate was 31%. And we see these reflected in these numbers. I'll also mention that the black population grew by nearly 6,000, and although they still represent about the same amount of percentage in the county, about 10.55%, the growth rate was 4%. And I have a couple maps showing the demographics of the county. And all these maps, there's 3 maps, and they're all set up in the same way. And they just give us an idea of where the populations are located. Shading is darker in areas with higher percentages of the population, and shading is lighter in areas with lower percentages of the population. In all 3 maps, the scale is the same, so that comparisons are easy to the eye. Anything in the darker greens is going to be a population of 50% or higher. So on this slide, we can see the geographic dispersion of the black voting age population. On the right-hand side, we have a map of the full county for context, and on the left-hand side, I tried to zoom into the areas where the black voting age population percentages are high. We have a couple of pockets, one in Newcastle and Westbury, another pocket just south of that in Hempstead, Uniondale, Roosevelt, Freeport, Baldwin Harbor, and Lakeview. And then in the west of the county, we have another pocket that is made up of South Floral Park, Elmont, North Valley Stream, and South Valley Stream. Next is the Latino voting age population, and you'll notice that the pockets are similar to the black residential patterns. Latino populations are a little bit more dispersed, and you can see that as I flip back and forth between them. There are pockets of Latino voting age population, again in Newcastle and Westbury, extending into Hicksville a little bit. Another one in the Hempstead, Uniondale, Roosevelt, Freeport, Baldwin area. And then again on the west side of the county, the Elmont, North Valley Stream, and Valley Stream area. And finally, a map showing concentrations of Asian voting age population. Again, we have 2 pockets here, sort of on the east and the west side. On the east side, we have pockets in Syosset, Jericho, and Hicksville around that area, and a pocket on the western side that includes, among others, Herricks, Lake Success, North New Hyde Park, and Garden City Park. And that just gives a little foundation on the demographics of the county. Next, I want to talk about racially polarized voting. Racially polarized voting is a phenomenon that exists when we have racial and ethnic groups voting as distinct groups with distinct candidate preferences. We use a statistic called ecological inference to measure the degree of racially polarized voting. Ecological inference, you may have heard referenced as EI. Ecological inference is the predominant measure for racially polarized voting. It has been for decades and is accepted by the courts universally. The other thing to note is that results reflect estimates of the group voting behavior. We can only derive estimates. Measuring racially polarized voting is part of the analysis of the Jingles preconditions, which is part of the legal framework for assessing voting rights violations. This framework was established in Thornburg v. Jingles in 1986, and we use the racially polarized voting and the ecological inference to answer a series of questions. Is voting racially polarized? And if so, who are the candidates of choice? Are the minority voters candidates of choice usually defeated? And then as part of this exercise, we also do a performance analysis. And a performance analysis lets us look at past elections under new districts to see if they perform for the minority preferred candidates. I analyzed 2 contests in Nassau County, the 2017 and 2021 county clerk contests. These are considered the most probative elections for analysis for a couple of reasons. They are recent, they are endogenous elections, meaning the geography for the election is the same as the jurisdiction under consideration, so it's the full county. And we have minority candidates on the ballot. So for these 2 contests, racially polarized voting was present. In the 2021 contest between Brown and O'Connell, the candidate of choice for Latino and Black voters was Brown, and they supported Brown between 84 and 95% support. Black and Latino voters were voting as a coalition. The candidate of choice for white voters was O'Connell, and white voters supported him between 66 and 70%. The white voting bloc was sufficient to defeat the minority's preferred candidate in Brown. Results are similar in the 2017 contest between Bennett and O'Connell. Again, racially polarized voting was present. The candidate of choice for Latino and Black voters was Bennett. Support ranged from 88 to 96% support. Black and Latino voters were voting in coalition. The candidate of choice for the white voters was O'Connell, and white support for O'Connell was between 59 and 62%. The white voting bloc again was sufficient to defeat the minority preferred candidate. We'll move into redistricting. I want to go through the redistricting criteria that guided the map making process. First of all was equal population. And equal population has roots in the U.S. Constitution around one person, one vote. The Nassau County also has local requirements in the municipal home rule law that we'll get into more specifically. And for this exercise, we use the prison-adjusted total population based on the 2020 decennial census, published by the New York State Legislative Task Force on Demographic Research and Apportionment. Second, we wanted to maintain compactness, as compact as possible while otherwise complying. We wanted to keep districts contiguous, avoid connecting districts by water. Nassau County has a lot of water features to work with. That is a traditional redistricting principle and something that we do as a matter of course. We also wanted to preserve political subdivisions. This is a traditional redistricting principle and also required by the local municipal home rule law. And again, I'll get into that more specifically also. I also wanted to preserve communities of interest. This is desirable, and I was able to incorporate communities of interest as they were relayed to me and largely based on public testimony. And finally, we look to the Voting Rights Act to help us determine if majority minority districts are in order. And for this proposed plan, we have 5 districts that are majority minority districts. This is based on overall minority population, residential patterns, racially polarized voting patterns, and in full compliance of all of the other requirements. The districts perform, by which I mean they allow minority voters the opportunity to elect their candidates of choice. Factors I did not consider include election results, party affiliation, party advantage, or any other partisan measure. I did not consider boundaries or cores of the 2013 legislative plan. And I did not consider addresses of incumbent county legislators. Quick orientation to the map, and we're going to go through each of the districts, but this is an overview. The district boundaries are in black lines, the districts are numbered, and smaller subdivisions are shown in the gray lines. I'm going to go through some of the statistics on the proposed plan. First, equal population. The New York Municipal Home Rule Law states that the difference in population between the most and the least populous districts shall not exceed 5% of the mean population of all districts. Shorthand, that means we have a 5% population deviation. Again, populations are based on the prison-adjusted data set. The first thing we do is derive an ideal population, and to do that, we take the total population of the county and divide it by the number of districts, in this case 19, to get our ideal district population, which is 73,522 people. The proposed plan has a population range of 72,006 people to 75,231 people. And this is an overall population range of 4.39%. 4.39% is squarely within the New York Municipal Home Rule Law. We also created a very compact plan and measured compactness here. The REOC and Polsby-Popper tests are common compactness tests. Both measures run from 0 to 1. The higher numbers indicate more compact districts. One thing to note about compactness measures is that some courts have given some weight to some measures, but there is no consistent measure and no definitive test for compactness. The proposed plan, however, does improve substantially in overall plan compactness and individual district compactness as compared to the 2013 legislative plan. For the proposed plan, we also wanted to preserve political subdivisions. The Municipal Home Rule Law states that to the extent practicable, no villages, cities, or towns except those having more than 40% of a full ratio for each district shall be divided. The proposed plan complies fully with the Municipal Home Rule Law and keeps all political subdivisions that are subject to the law in a single district. I'm going to go through the districts one by one, but I wanted to give a quick rundown. The slides are going to all look the same. Quick rundown of what we're looking at. The map shows the district boundaries in bold black lines and Google Maps underneath it for reference. Areas shaded in red, and you can see one on the corner here, not in this district, in a side district. Those areas are subject to the Municipal Home Rule Law. We have a table showing the total population, adjusted voting age population, and estimated citizen voting age population for each district. We have details on the overall district population and deviation, details on compactness, And then I'm going to point out any special features or considerations as we walk through each of the districts. So District 1 includes either full or portions of Elmont, North Valley Stream, and Valley Stream. District 1 has a very high compactness score. This is a majority-minority district with 65% combined voting age population and 59% combined citizen voting age population. In the performance analysis, minority preferred candidates won by 33 to 39%. And as previously mentioned, there are no areas subject to the municipal home rule law in District 1. District 2 includes Newcastle, Westbury, Salisbury, Uniondale, and portions of East Meadow. There was public testimony about keeping Newcastle and Westbury together as a community of interest, and we have done that here. This is also a majority-minority district. The combined voting age population is 64%. The combined citizen voting age population is 57%. The performance analysis, the minority preferred candidate wins by 24 to 37%. And Westbury is subject to the municipal home rule law and is kept whole in District 2. District 3 includes Hempstead and a portion of West Hempstead. We heard testimony to unify the village of Hempstead, which is the largest village in the United States, and this plan accomplishes that goal. This is also a very compact district. It's also a majority-minority district where the combined voting age population is 79.88%, about 80%, and the combined citizen voting age population is about 72%. In the performance analysis, minority preferred candidates won by 26 to 36% in District 3. District 4 includes all of Roosevelt, Rockville Center, South Hempstead, and Lakeview, and portions of West Hempstead, Malvern Park Oaks, Baldwin, and Freeport. This is also a majority-minority district. The combined voting age population is about 60%, and the combined citizen voting age population is about 53%. In a performance analysis, the minority preferred candidates won by 16 to 30%. And Rockville Center is the only area subject to the municipal home rule law, and it is shown in red and is kept whole in District 4. District 5 unifies the cores of Baldwin and Freeport with portions of Merrick. This is the 5th majority-minority district. The combined voting age population is 63%, and the combined citizen voting age population is about 55%. In performance analysis, the minority preferred candidate won by 17 to 30%. And there are no areas subject to the municipal home rule law in District 5. District 6 includes New Hyde Park, North New Hyde Park, Garden City Park, Herricks, Lake Success, Searingtown, Manhasset Hills, University Gardens, Saddle Rock Estates, Harbor Hills, Thomaston, Great Neck Plaza, Great Neck Estates, and Russell Gardens. This is an Asian influence district. And while we have no legal obligation here to create an Asian influence district, where the population and redistricting principles naturally took us, allow for a Asian influence district. And when these things align, it is important to do so. And in this district, the Asian voting age population is just over 40%, and the citizen voting age population is around 35%.
Dr. Gall, I don't mean to interrupt you, but could you please define Asian for us? What Asian nationalities are in that district?
Yes, sir. This is Asian as defined by the Census Bureau, which is quite a lengthy list of all folks they define as Asian. I don't have that in front of me, but if helpful, I can submit later.
Yes, please do.
Sure. Let me make a note. Okay. There are several areas subject to the municipal home rule law, and instead of reading them again, they're on the screen for your viewing. District 7 includes, among others, Glen Cove, Sea Cliff, Glenwood Landing, Old Brookville, Glen Head, Cove Neck, Laddington, and like I said, several others. There are several areas subject to the municipal home rule law. I have them listed on the screen, and I will forego reading them to you again.
Doctor,
District
this
8.
is Frank Maroney again. I apologize for interrupting you. If you could also, when you give us that list of the definition of Asian, if you could include sending us copies of the participation and I'm sorry, the presentation, and so that we can have that in front of us.
I think we should submit the entire PowerPoint deck to the record, so we'll make sure that happens.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving on. Okay. District 8 includes all of Plainview and Bethpage and half of Hicksville. We heard testimony suggesting these areas are a community of interest, with a request to reduce the splits of Hicksville specifically, and we were able to do that. Farmingdale is the only area subject to the municipal home rule law, and it is kept complete in District 8. District 9 includes Manhasset, Sands Point, Manor Haven, Port Washington North, Baxter Estates, Plandome Manor, Flower Hill, Plandome, Plandome Heights, Muncie Park, Roslyn Estates, Roslyn Harbor, Kensington, Great Neck, and Kings Point. There are several areas subject to the municipal home rule law in District 9. They are all kept whole.
Doctor, this is Peter B., chair of the Republican delegation. I just wonder if you could clarify the term. You several times said something does or does not, is or is not subject to the municipal home rule law. What do you mean by subject to? I was under the impression that the crafting of any district was subject to the municipal home rule law.
More specifically, that is correct. I'm speaking about the splits specifically. This piece of the municipal home rule law that says, to the extent practicable, no villages, cities, or towns, except those having more than 40%, shall be divided. So I'm specifically referencing that in these slides.
So when you say it's not subject to that law, what you're saying is that you haven't violated that provision of the law in crafting the district.
That's correct.
Thank you.
I think I left off on 10. 10. District 10 includes Franklin Square, Malvern, North Lynbrook, Bay Park, and East Rockaway. Also has portions of Oceanside and Franklin Square. There are 3 areas subject to the municipal home rule law that we did not want to split, and we kept those areas whole in District 10. District 11 includes Bellerose Terrace, Bellerose, Floral Park, South Floral Park, Stewart Manor, Garden City South, and Garden City. Also has portions of Franklin Square and Elmont. Several areas are subject to the municipal home rule law regarding splitting, and those are kept whole in District 11. District 12 includes Carl Place, Mineola, Williston Park, East Williston, Albertson, Roslyn Heights, Old Westbury, East Hills, Brookville, Muttontown, East Norwich and Greenvale, and including portions of Searingtown. Again, several areas that we did not want to split, and we kept those areas whole. 13 includes portions of Levittown, East Meadow, and Salisbury. This is a very compact district with no areas subject to the municipal home rule law. District 14 includes North Belmore, North Merrick, and Belmore. It has portions of Merrick and Watauga in it. There are no portions subject to the municipal home rule law regarding splitting. District 15 includes Jericho, Syosset, and Woodbury entirely in one district per testimony, public testimony. The district also has portions of Hicksville, and there are no areas subject to the municipal home rule law regarding splits, but the key here for us was keeping Jericho, Syosset, and Woodbury in a single district. District 16 unifies the 5 towns area, as was also noted in public testimony. This includes Lawrence, Inwood, Cedarhurst, Hewlett Neck, Woodsburg, Woodmere, Hewlett, Hewlett Bay Park, and Hewlett Harbor. Several of those areas are subject to the municipal home rule law regarding splits, and those are kept whole in this district. District 17 keeps the barrier island in one district, and this includes Atlantic Beach, Long Beach, Lido Beach, and Point Lookout. Atlantic Beach and Island Park are subject to the municipal home rule law, and they are kept whole in District 17. District 18 includes Massapequa, Seaford, and North Wantagh, portions of Levittown, and North Massapequa. There are no areas subject to the municipal home rule law regarding splits. And finally, District 19 includes Plain Edge, South Farmingdale, Massapequa Park, and East Massapequa. The municipal home rule law applies to Massapequa Park.
Doctor, this is Frank Maroney again.
Yes.
I've got a question for you. In between District 10 and District 5, which is right above District 17, there appears to be a piece of land that's detached from, I'm gathering, District 17. Is that correct?
Can you orient me? I have my map in front of me. Can you orient me one more time?
Sure. It's between the southern portion of District 10 and the southern portion of District 5, north of District 17.
Okay.
There is a, let's call it a finger for discussion purposes, that's
Yes.
detached from District 17. Is that intended to be in District 17 or not?
It is attached via roadways, and it is intended to be in District 17.
What is the roadway?
The roadway is the Austin Boulevard.
Which
Looks like
boulevard,
it-
I'm sorry?
Austin, it might also be called Industrial Place. No, it's Austin Boulevard. It runs north from Long Beach.
Okay, now one other question about the map as a whole. Can
Yes.
you direct me to the districts that under the municipal home rule law where you've maintained the core of existing districts, if you could, please?
I did not consider district cores in drawing the maps.
So the map in total then is in violation of that section of the municipal home rule law.
I understood that to be a consideration, not a requirement.
What you took it to be or not, the fact remains that it was ignored by you, correct?
I did not consider district cores
Okay.
in my drawing. And And that is the end of the presentation. I'd be happy to take any additional questions.
Are there any questions over here? Any questions over here?
Yes, I have a question that really is a follow-up to yours, and maybe I've got the wrong quotation in front of me, but my review of the Municipal Home Rule Law was that it lists 6 criteria in order of importance, and the 5th criteria is that you must consider, quote, cores of existing districts, cities, villages, and towns should be maintained, close quote. So I just, Doctor, did you have a chance to review those criteria?
Excuse me, can we keep the voices down in the audience, please? I believe Commissioner B, I know the volume is as high as it can go. I've already asked. So, okay. Okay, Mr. McKenna, please, have a seat. Commissioner? Okay, they will be on the Democratic delegation's Google Drive. Commissioner B was speaking. Please, if we can keep the commotion down, it's very difficult to hear Dr. Gall. Commissioner?
Yeah, I believe I'd finished the question, which was, my recollection is that the Municipal Home Rule Law does require consideration of the, quote, cores of existing districts and requires that they be maintained. Obviously, it's the 5th consideration, but it is one of the 6 considerations required.
I'd like to ask if you could to quote the entire consideration. That's only a few words out of the 2nd sentence of a 3-sentence description. So if you could,
if you have it handy, that would be great.
Sure. Would you like me to do that for you?
Please.
So the consideration, item number 5, it says, and I quote, "Districts shall not be drawn to discourage competition or for the purpose of favoring or disfavoring incumbents or other particular candidates or political parties. The maintenance of cores of existing districts, of pre-existing political subdivisions, including cities, villages, and towns, and communities of interest, shall also be considered. To the extent practicable, no villages, cities, or towns, except those having more than 40% of a full ratio for each district, shall be divided," end quote.
Okay. And I'm not at the moment battling whether she should or should not have considered the cores of existing districts. I'm just asking whether she did. And I think she said before she did not, but I just want to make sure I understood that correctly.
Well, the existing map is illegal.
Well, I was just asking the doctor the question, did she consider the existing districts?
The illegal existing districts, that's the question?
No, my question is, did she consider the existing legislative districts and any consideration given to maintaining them in her work?
Well, I just want to be clear on the question for the record. What are you defining as the core of a district?
Well,
because the law is very clear that the core district should not include a consideration of incumbency of particular candidates.
Doctor, hopefully you heard the quote of the law given by my fellow commissioner, and I wondered whether you did or did not take that into consideration when you drew the proposed districts.
I did not take district cores of the 2013 legislative map into consideration. My analysis of the 2013 legislative map was that it was a violation of the Voting Rights Act.
And who advised you of that?
That was based on my own analysis.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
That was based on my own analysis.
So no one told you that it was in violation of the VRA, correct?
That's correct.
Now let me ask you another question, if I could. Did you take into account incumbency?
I did not take into account incumbency.
What were the other items, Mr. Bernhardt, that you said? Can you go one by one?
Sure. Districts shall not be drawn to discourage competition or for the purpose of favoring or just. But let me take a break. Are you asking me to read you?
I don't have it in front of
subsection E. Would you like me to hand it to you, or would you
Sure,
like me to read it?
I'm
to you?
happy to do that. I don't mean to send work in your direction. Did you take into account whether or not anyone will be discouraged from competition, or for the purpose of favoring or disfavoring any incumbent?
I did not.
Did you deal with any particular candidates or political parties?
I did not.
You didn't consider any of those items so far, right?
I did not.
Okay, so you then therefore have something in your possession as to who those people were and what those candidates are or were and what their names are.
I don't follow the question. Could you rephrase?
Okay, I'll go back and ask it.
I'm sorry, I don't understand either. She just said that she didn't consider it, that she didn't consider incumbency.
Then I misunderstood it, because I asked, the question I asked was, did she take it into consideration? But let me ask it again, because we want to make sure the record is clear. Did you take into consideration whether or not the map you were drawing would favor or disfavor any incumbent?
I did not take incumbency into account in any way, shape, or form.
Okay.
Dr. Gall, could you go back to the slide where you list the factors that are not considered? I think that addresses all of these questions directly.
And all of these other items that are not on that list, you did take into account?
These are the factors I took into consideration.
Okay, thank you.
Could we bring back District 5 for a second? Bring that slide up. With regard to, you say there's no municipal homeroom law subject areas in here, correct?
That's my understanding, yes.
What? Yeah, okay, I believe there is a village actually in there, but I just want to say it's Village Fruitport, right? Is it not subject to? Okay, yeah, it's hard to read on the map. So.
They're asking if there is in the southern area a village.
But we got the answer. It's not subject to, because it exceeds the population.
Right, exceeds the population.
Thank you.
Okay, if there's nothing else, would you remain at least on the online if we need some crosstalk to refer back to some things you might have taken into consideration? I know you have another engagement. If you have to go, that's fine. Just let us know. Okay.
Okay. Thank you for your time today.
And maybe what we could do, because I know Dr. Gall did have something else, if we need to get her back, we can text her or call her and try and get her back.
I'm okay with that.
Does that work
That's
for you?
fine.
Okay.
That's fine. We don't want to get anybody's schedule out of whack. Okay. We're going to put up a different map at this particular point. We're putting up on the screens in front of you the map that's been presented by the Republican commissioners. And we'll be hearing testimony from David Schaefer, who is a principal in Skyline Consulting.
I'm David Schaefer. I'm the Vice President of Skyline Consulting. This is my fourth redistricting cycle. I started in 1990 and have worked in primarily New York State redistricting projects, including statewide, numerous counties and towns. I've testified and been an expert in federal and state courts. And in this redistricting cycle, worked for the state legislative lines as well as a dozen counties and towns. As was stated before, under the Census 2020 populations, Nassau County's districts need to be adjusted to comply with one person, one vote and state and federal law. A year ago in October, new changes to the municipal home rule law now require smaller population deviations than previously required. And also now require villages to remain whole and require a reduction in political considerations when drawing districts. My process in this first draft is to, without input from the commissioners in any significant way, create a map that follows the municipal home rule law, the state and federal laws, and produces this map to be used as a starting point for their final plan. That being any subjective information from public testimony be given to me, changes being made based on this starting point. We adhere to every consideration of the municipal home rule law except possibly this number F, which was districts shall be formed as to promote the orderly and efficient administration of elections. My practice is to leave that one off till the end when the Board of Elections can be consulted to see if any proposed changes that are likely to pass might cause them any pain. As stated before, municipal home rule law, I think it's section 34, deals with these rules, and these are what I followed to create our proposal. Equal population with no more than 5% total deviation. Districts do not have the intent or result of diminishing racial or language minorities. The language minorities part of that is new from the municipal home rule law. Districts are compact and contiguous, shall not be drawn to discourage competition, favor or disfavor incumbents, candidates, or parties. The cores of existing districts, cities, villages, and towns should be maintained, and as I said before, to promote the efficient administration of elections. The primary reason for redistricting is to comply with one person, one vote. Our plan complies with that and has a 1.8% total deviation from the ideal population. No district is more than 1% above the ideal population or 1% below the ideal population. As far as Voting Rights Act and racial minority language groups, the Voting Rights Act is a federal law that requires us to take a look at to see if whether a historical reduction of minority communities' rights prevent them from electing the candidates of their choice. Without having done an ecological regression or an ecological inference, I drew these maps presuming that if someone wanted to bring a suit under Section 2, that they would have no basis, because I did create districts that this federal law would require. In the existing districts 10 years ago, one of the districts had a majority voting age black population, and through changes of demographics and other population shifts, none of the districts have a majority voting age black population above 50%. So we did create a district, I think it's District 1, that is above 50%, and I believe that inoculates us from a challenge under the federal Voting Rights Act. In the past, coalition districts of black and Hispanic populations found it difficult. In my experience in New York State, the data is either unclear or shows that Hispanic and African American voting populations don't always have common political interests, and sometimes are disparate. I think that there's not a lot of data in the last 10 years, although I'm not a statistician, that show any elections or block voting patterns which had a, say, Hispanic preferred candidate or a African American preferred candidate, to see whether or not the two populations in a primary election, for example, would be politically polarized. I think the elections earlier were general elections that we saw. Compact and contiguous, all of the districts in our plan are compact. All are contiguous. In fact, in our plan, all of the districts and the plan as a whole is more compact than the existing boundaries. We used about 9 algorithms, which are based in the software used to draw the maps, and in every measure, they were better than the existing boundaries. A new rule in the municipal home rule law states that districts shall not be drawn to discourage competition or favor or disfavor incumbents, candidates, or parties. every change we make in redistricting has a positive or negative effect on all of those things. So my practice is to draw the districts incumbent blind without any political data at all, and that prevents me from unconsciously creating districts that intentionally help or hurt a candidate. But after we completed our plan, we overlaid the home addresses of the incumbent members to see if any members were paired. Pairing of incumbents is an obvious and very measurable way to determine whether an incumbent is going to be helped or harmed. If two incumbents have to run against each other in the same district, obviously one of them will lose and one of them will win. I don't use enrollment or past election results to predict future outcomes of elections to do that, but the home address of a incumbent is a fact. It's a non-disputable fact, and in our plan, after drawing, I found I paired 3 members in one district and 2 members in another. While I didn't undo those, I submitted the plan to the commission. I feel that those pairings could be undone if the commission decides without affecting any of the more important conditions of the municipal home rule law. The municipal home rule law does state that smaller villages under 40% of the size of a whole district, should not be split where practicable. Our plan doesn't split any villages except for the 3 that are allowed under the municipal home rule law. And let me see, preservation of cores of districts. Municipal home rule law requires us to recognize the cores of districts as well in that same paragraph. Our plan preserves 91% of the cores of existing districts. Very few citizens of Nassau County will have to vote for a new member based on the drawing that we've done. 65 villages remain whole under that section. Let me just see. And in summation, I guess, our plan follows every one of the conditions of the Municipal Home Rule Law. We inoculate ourselves against a federal Voting Rights Act challenge by creating a African American majority district, and we also create 3 what I would call majority minority districts in addition to that African American majority district. So we feel I feel this plan, although it's flawed in some ways, it more closely achieves, or it closely achieves the goals of municipal rule law changes, as well as federal, state, and county laws.
Are there any questions?
Thank you. You said it's Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Thank you for your overview and presentation today. What software did you use to draw the map? Maptitude?
Maptitude.
Did you use any other software or just Maptitude?
Well, in different presentation softwares, I used Excel as well.
Okay. Anything other than Maptitude and Excel?
I'm sure there were, but nothing substantive.
Okay. What information did you have uploaded into Maptitude that you used for the drawing of the map?
Just the census data.
Just census. And you used total population from 2020 census?
The adjusted population, prisoner adjusted population.
Prisoner adjusted. Did you, at any point in time, look at VAP or CVAP?
VAP, voting age population, as reported by the Census Bureau. I have citizen voting age population available to me. I didn't use it for a couple of reasons. 2 primary reasons are the citizen voting age population usually released at the decennial census. That process wasn't done this year. So the data that the CVAP I would have used was very old, 3, 4, maybe older.
2019 5-year ACS?
Yeah, but that survey would have been done prior to that.
Yeah, that's right.
And second, there's a process which I would love to talk to statisticians at length about called differential privacy. The census, to preserve the privacy of people that responded to the census, they, at small geographic levels, kind of shuffled all the data together and then reassigned it. The idea from the Census Bureau was if one person lived on a census block and answered the census a certain way, anybody could look at the answers for that census block and know specifically what that person did. In the past, what they would do with that person is they just put his answers in with an adjoining block of a larger population and then randomly distribute his answers into his block. This time, they took all of the blocks in the entire country and did an analysis, a statistical analysis, and then reassigned population to census blocks. At larger geographies, it is probably accurate. And again, I'm not a statistician. I would love to talk to a statistician at length about that. At small geographies, the margins of error are very high. So I don't think it's appropriate to use the census CVAP numbers to decide the exact percentage of a district with such high margins of error.
Did you look at partisan data at any point in time?
Just the incumbent's address after I completed the plan.
Did you have any sort of partisan scores uploaded into Maptitude?
No.
Did you report out to, I assume your clients are the Republican commissioners, is that correct?
Yeah.
Did you report out to the Republican commissioners any sort of partisan scores for the districts?
Not at all.
What information other than the census data did you use as your basis for drawing this map?
Almost 100% use the municipal home rule law and the existing legislative boundaries.
Okay. Anything else other than municipal home rule law and existing legislative boundaries?
40 years of experience, but that's all.
So there were no other considerations or inputs into
Not at this
the
stage. My
preparation of this
practice in my business is to produce a first draft map that is going to be flawed because I don't use public testimony or subjective information. I just got to a plan that would comply with all the laws.
So you anticipate changing this map once you have an opportunity to be presented with public testimony, and is that
Yes.
I understand that correctly?
Yes.
Are there any other inputs that you plan to take into account when you update this map other than public testimony?
Whatever the commissioners request, I will put into the next version of the map.
So this map is flawed. It's not a map that you believe should be adopted by this commission?
Well, it's a legal map, and it adheres to all the rules of the law. I think that the commission may find it flawed.
It takes any steps to preserve communities of interest?
Other than villages and the existing cores of existing districts, nothing subjective that has been in recent testimony.
Why do you think the commission would find this map to be flawed?
Because I pair some members, because I may have in making villages whole, made them whole in the wrong district. If two villages were, on a border, and I could have put it in one versus the other. There are a lot of villages, mainly, that make it very difficult to, unlike 10 years ago, for example, use census blocks as the smallest piece of geography. The northern part of Oyster Bay has a big wall of villages that if you have to not split them, which I didn't, choosing to put one village in one district versus another to get to equal population, that may have been a wrong choice. And that's something that I think the existence of the commission is here to correct.
Okay. And this is version 5 of the map?
No, it's just called Plan 5.
Plan 5. Why is that?
Over my experience, I've gone to public hearings and testimony, and I've started randomly naming my maps.
So there aren't plans 1 through 4 that you have somewhere?
No, and it's so that in some occasions, in some public hearings in my past, we would name a map something innocuous that some members of the public or some members of the commissions would find to be revealing of something that wasn't true, so I started using random names.
Okay. Did you draw the 2013 map?
I did.
Okay. And were there different criteria that you considered in the 2013 map beyond what we discussed just now?
Yes, there was the changes to the municipal home rule law were just enacted a year ago.
Did you consider any partisan data when you prepared the 2013 map?
I don't remember the 2013 cycle.
So
I may have, I don't know.
You don't know if you considered...
I have notes, but I didn't, I had to ask for the report from 10 years ago just to remember what happened. I've literally done probably 40 or 50 redistricting maps in the last 2 cycles, and I don't remember this specific process 10 years ago.
Who was your client 10 years ago?
The first time it was the county attorney. The second time I think it was this commission.
Was your client the county legislature at any point in time?
I'd have to check. I don't remember the contract.
Was the map that was ultimately adopted one that was prepared by you?
Yes.
Do you know if anybody else adjusted your map after you submitted it to whoever you submitted it to?
I don't think it was. I looked at it. It looked the same to me.
Did you conduct a racially polarized voting analysis? I think you said you didn't. Is that right?
No, I'm not a statistician. I would hire somebody to do that for us.
Why didn't you hire somebody to do that for you? I'm sorry. Let me restate the question. Did you hire somebody to do that?
No, I've worked with those people, but I've never personally hired one.
And why didn't you hire one?
Because I think that I work under the presumption that if I draw in this cycle, the non-Hispanic black voting age district at above 50%, there'd be no reason to sue under the Voting Rights Act.
And why is that?
Because in the Jingles preconditions, I think it's the first one, it says, I got them right here. The minority group must be able to demonstrate that it is sufficiently large and geographically compact to constitute a majority in a single-member district. In my experience in New York State, African Americans are a minority group that does have politically cohesive voting, and it's mathematically possible to create a majority district. So the first Jingles precondition could not be met under a Section 2 challenge under this plan.
And that's because you believe that you should not aggregate black and Latino voters for the purpose of drawing a map for Nassau County. Is that correct?
I have no evidence that you should do that, no.
Okay. Are you aware that the Second Circuit has held that coalition districts can be drawn and should be drawn under Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act when you can aggregate, when you show that there's cohesion?
When you show there's cohesion. I know that there are cases where, and again, around the state, that there's not always cohesion between African American and Hispanic candidates.
But to be clear, you've done no inquiry into whether there's cohesion in Nassau
No.
County right now. Okay. So
No, but I do know that there's cohesion among, I strongly believe there's cohesion among African Americans.
Now, if there was cohesion between black and Latino voters in Nassau County, how would that change your obligations under the Voting Rights Act?
We would have to decide, or the commission would have to decide, whether or not the non-Hispanic black district that can be created should be created, or if all the districts should be coalition districts. So you'd have to decide whether the African American majority district should be eliminated and replaced by 4 Hispanic coalition districts with the African Americans.
And why 4?
Well, that's what there are in our plan and in actually the other plan as well.
That's not correct.
Under voting age population. I didn't look at CVAP. It may be under CVAP, but under regular census voting age population, there was only 4 in both. I could be wrong, but based on the Excel that I saw.
Yeah, the other plan, I mean, we can go through the numbers, but the other plan does have 5.
The Excel that I received only had 4 that were above 50%. But I got it yesterday, so I don't know.
Do you have the shape? Did you look at the shape file?
Only for maybe an hour. I printed it out and that's it.
Okay. And when you say it only has 4, is that coalition or?
No, that's absence of non-Hispanic white people. That's the amount of time I had to.
Okay. All right. So I think this goes to the point that everybody here only had like a day to look at these maps. I think we all need more time. I'd want to take more time to understand the maps, and I think that I would invite my colleagues to do the same with our map. I want to circle back to this coalition district point. So let's say, and I understand you haven't done any cohesion, any RPV, but let's say that there was evidence, which I'll tell you there is, but let's say that there was evidence that black and Latino voters voted in cohesion. Is it fair to say that that would create an obligation to draw black, Latino, majority-minority districts where the circumstances warrant it?
Excuse me. I don't think that hypothetical questions should be asked under the circumstances of why we're here. Ask questions about the map, that's okay, but to create a hypothetical situation is just not, is just putting extra stuff on the record.
Okay. Why not?
Because it's hypothetical, it's not real.
This entire thing is hypothetical. This is, these maps are not adopted. This is a hypothetical map, isn't it?
Perhaps I'm taking this more serious than others, but what I do understand is that a hypothetical creates another hypothetical, which builds upon another hypothetical, and we don't need to go in circles. Let's just stick with the facts and what we know and what's in front of us.
Well, I think hypotheticals create the basis for what the actual analysis is and the thought process behind what his expert opinion. So an expert can be asked the hypothetical because they're an expert.
I think
we do it all the time in court. I mean, this is not even.
Well, we're not in court, and I think
we
that
will be.
Well, God bless you. Good luck. Mr. Pernick is very, very pointed in his questions that weren't hypothetical. So let's keep going.
I'll move on. I want to be clear. Well, let me ask: did you make any effort to draw any majority-minority Black Latino coalition districts?
I didn't make an effort to do it. No, I made an effort to see if I could create, because District 1 in 2013 was majority. That's the effort I made as far as race goes. Everything else, after it was over, we created 4 and nearly a 5th minority district. And again, today I'm defining it as absence of non-Hispanic white population. So we have 4.
Are you aware that there have been significant calls from the public for 5 majority-minority coalition districts?
I've heard that recently. Yeah.
But you made no effort to evaluate whether that's been possible to achieve?
I didn't, because after I heard it, it's substantially we did create. This plan does create 5. The 5th one right now is 49.5%.
49.5% white
majority minority. If there were a 5th one in this plan 5, I could create a 5th plan district by just moving around some census blocks, and it would be a majority district.
How do you define majority-minority in that sense?
Right now, just by population.
So
voting age population.
So you're saying that you have 5 districts that are majority-minority voting age population?
Almost 5. Yep, just at the line.
I'm sorry, I don't understand the almost.
5th district is right now 49.5% majority-minority, 49.5. So moving one census block would make it 50.5.
And when you say majority-minority in this case, am I understanding properly that you are looking at Black, Latino, Asian, Pacific Islander, and other, and you're aggregating all of those groups for the purpose of defining majority-minority?
For the purpose of this, yes. Absence of non-Hispanic.
Is that the proper definition of majority-minority district, aggregating?
No, because
Black,
I don't.
Please let me finish the question. Is that the proper definition of majority-minority districts, to aggregate Black, Latino, Asian, Pacific Islander, Native American, and other into one category? Is that the right way to define majority-minority district?
It wouldn't be under the federal law, but under the municipal home rule law, I think that recognizing neighborhoods or areas of different language and racial minority groups is something to be considered. I think if this were a federal voting rights case, then you would have to do all those things. I think, in my opinion, drawing this map, the only district that potentially was subject to the Voting Rights Act was the African American district.
And you've done no assessment of whether any of the, I guess, 5 districts that you're referring to that have substantial minority populations, have you done any assessment of whether they would perform for candidates preferred by voters of color?
No.
Are you familiar with the New York Voting Rights Act?
The John Lewis law?
That's right, the John
Yes.
Lewis Voting Rights Act of New York. Do you believe the John Lewis Voting Rights Act of New York will apply to these maps at some point in the future?
I think that I would wait to see what happens when it's first applied. I think, I don't know if I don't know how to apply the law to the current plan. I think part of law, for example, the Attorney General has some jurisdiction over some parts of the law if she chooses. So if she doesn't choose to comply with pre-clearance, then it wouldn't apply. So I think that there's a lot in the John Lewis law that I don't understand yet, and I'm hoping it becomes clearer when it kicks in a little bit more.
So I understand that you're referencing the pre-clearance provisions of the law. That's not what I'm specifically referring to. There's a section of the law, 17-206, subsection 2, which is a prohibition against vote dilution. No, and I quote, "No board of elections or political subdivision shall use any method of election having the effect of impairing the ability of members of a protected class to elect candidates of their choice or influence the outcome of elections as a result of vote dilution." And then it goes on to provide details and standards for evaluating that violation. Are you familiar with that section
I'm
of
familiar.
the New York Voting Rights Act?
I've read it, yeah.
Okay, so you're familiar with that section?
Yep.
And do you believe that that section will apply to Nassau County's legislative districts?
If protected classes are in part of it, then they would. I don't know what's going to happen when the John Lewis law is applied.
Well, I just want to clarify. So you said if protected classes are included, I'm going to refer back to section 17-204 sub 5, which defines protected class. I'll quote, "Protected class means a class of eligible voters who are members of a race, color, or language minority group." I'm sure you're familiar with that phraseology. It tracks the federal VRA and federal case law.
It tracks it, but it's, in my discussions, these are, not professional, well, discussions with other people who do redistricting. Language minority is not well defined. We're wondering what's going to happen when two language minorities are in the same area with each other to see which one would get precedence, or maybe not precedence, maybe both would have to be done. I think the changes with the John Lewis law and municipal rule law make a lot more gray area because it adds a lot more things that have to be looked at in redistricting. And as a person who's done this in a while, the section 2 has been pretty easy. You clear the 3 jingles preconditions and then go to federal court. It's easy to measure at least one of the jingles preconditions without a statistician. As far as racially block voting and majority voting against the preferred candidates, that's usually discussed and proven in court in every case.
So I just want to cut to the heart of the issue here. Is it fair to say that you've taken no steps to ensure that this map complies with the John Lewis Voting Rights Act?
I think it probably does, but I've taken no affirmative steps.
Okay. I just want to circle back for a moment. You said that there was a 5th district that wasn't majority-minority, but if you combine all of the different census subgroups, it would almost be majority-minority. Could you just tell me what district is that?
So District 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6. 6 it would be.
6, okay. That's the district, I believe, with Malvern Lynbrook in it?
Yes. Well, ours has Lynbrook in the center of it.
Yeah, I'm referring to District 6 that is a majority-minority district, almost, according to Mr. Schaefer. And that's District 6, which has Malvern and Lynbrook, is the 5th district that you're saying might give minority voters an opportunity to elect a candidate of their choice? Okay. Do you have any reason to believe that that district would perform for a candidate preferred by voters of color?
No.
Okay. Did you use the current map as a starting point for drawing this map?
I did.
You tried to preserve the current map as much as possible, right?
In this draft, yes, I did, and it's also required by the same section of the MHRL that requires that villages stay whole, and favoring disfavoring incumbents shouldn't be done.
If the current map was adjudicated to be unlawful under the Voting Rights Act or under another provision of the voting of state law, would you still have used that map as a starting point for the drawing of this map?
It's not unlawful. I mean, it's I presume, and the courts presume, in my experience, that every map is presumed to be legal.
That's not my question. If this map were deemed illegal, if there was substantial evidence that this map were illegal, would you use the map as a starting point? Would that be methodologically sound?
It's not illegal. I mean, that would be
That's not my question. I understand that it's your position that it's not
If the speed
illegal.
limit were 5 miles an hour, I would be guilty, but if this was illegal, it would be illegal. I don't understand the question.
The question is, if the current map were illegal, would it be methodologically appropriate to use that map as a starting point for drawing a new map for Nassau County?
Well, okay, if the municipal home rule law says legal cores of legal districts have to be used, then yes, but it doesn't say that. It says cores of existing districts.
So to make sure I understand, it's your position that even if this current map were deemed illegal, you would still think that it's appropriate to use that under the municipal home rule law. Is that correct?
Respectfully, I think he's answered the question, which is he followed the municipal home rule law, which says to use the existing districts. If the statute said something else, he'd do something else. But the statute says to do this, this is what he did.
So is it methodologically sound to base a map that you're drawing for a client on an illegal starting point?
Again, I think he's answered that question.
No, he hasn't. That's a question about methodology. So I want to hear the answer to this question. Methodologically, this is not hypothetical. This is methodology. I want to hear the answer to the question about Mr. Schaefer's methodology. So, Mr. Pernick, can you
But
repeat
he's
the
given
question?
you the methodology that he used. The methodology that he used was to start with
No,
the
that wasn't. The
existing
question
districts.
isn't what methodology did you use. The question is a particular methodology appropriate?
And you're asking him to ask something in futuro, and
That's not
again,
hypothetical. It is a current
Please
statement.
don't interrupt me.
I know,
when
because you're answering. You're trying to put answers in your expert's mouth. Let him answer the question. It's his methodology. This is his map. What is the
person
method
trying
that
to
he?
put words into his mouth is sitting to your left, not your right.
I'm asking. The question is it methodologically sound to do X, Y, and Z? So please answer the question.
Can I simply ask, though, that we take turns asking questions and answering questions and not just shout over each other?
Well, take your own advice.
I'm not trying to trip you up. It's a simple question. From a methodological perspective, is it appropriate to use an unlawful map as a starting point for drawing a new map for a jurisdiction?
Okay, I would say two things, because I think the starting point of a map is irrelevant as a person who's done this for 4 decades. The map that is passed and the map that was passed 10 years ago is legal as soon as the legislature passes it. And until somebody finds that it's not legal, it's not legal. So starting with a blank map, methodologically, but not legally in New York, is just as good as what some people do. For example, they produce every permutation of map that can be drawn in a geography, with that starting point not existent. That's here's 100 trillion different maps, and this is the best one that the algorithm picks. All of the starting points, whether it's a blank piece of paper, whether it's the existing districts, whether it's drawing circles and squares first, all of them, none of them are a good or a bad starting point, because there's a commission that decides on whether or not the people's will is going to be enforced in the map that is passed by the legislature.
So, Mr. Schaefer, I want to circle back to something you said a moment ago and unpack it a little bit. You had drawn a distinction between preserving the cores and preserving the legal cores. Am I quoting you correctly?
I think you did that. You told me to start within the legal map. I'm saying the law doesn't say legal core at all. I didn't make a distinction. I'm saying that phrase doesn't exist in the law.
So because the law doesn't say legal cores, am I understanding you correctly that you do not, that you would follow the current district regardless of whether or not you believed the current districts were lawful?
I believe that every map in the country is lawful that people have been elected on.
You said before that when you drew the current map, you considered other criteria like partisanship, right?
No, I never said that.
You considered other criteria?
I never said that.
when you drew the current map in 2013, you didn't say that you considered other criteria beyond what you considered in this
Oh,
map?
I thought you were talking about this map. I don't remember what happened in 2013.
But you do know that you considered other criteria beyond what you reported for this map, correct?
I can't tell you what I did 10 years ago.
Are you aware that members of the Democratic delegation have submitted a couple of short preliminary reports into the record?
I haven't seen any of them.
Are you aware that members of the Democratic delegation have submitted a couple of preliminary reports into the record? Are you aware of that?
I don't think so, but I don't think I'm aware of any specific documents, no.
So you're not you're not aware of the fact that we submitted 2 preliminary reports into the record before the commission?
Well, I know the commission's been meeting for several weeks, but I'm presuming that pieces of paper were moved during that time.
Are you familiar with the report issued by Dr. Gall concerning VRA's compliance of the current map?
I saw that today for the first time.
You saw that, so you have reviewed Dr. Gall's preliminary report.
I read it, yes.
Are you familiar with the preliminary report issued by Dr. Daniel Magleby concerning compliance with the partisan gerrymandering rules, the new rules under the municipal home rule law?
I saw that for the first time today. I haven't read the whole thing.
It's only 2 pages long. You didn't read the whole thing?
I just saw it before this meeting.
Okay, but you're familiar, you're aware that both of those reports exist?
Yes, now I am. Yep.
Do you have any reason to dispute what's in either of those reports?
I believe that they believe their conclusions. I don't necessarily believe it. I think...
Well, let me start with Dr. Gall. Do you have any reason to dispute any of the conclusions in Dr. Gall's preliminary report that you reviewed earlier today?
Without having a lot of time to do it, I would say that the fact that the elections that she referred to were general elections, and traditionally when I want to see if there's racially polarized voting between 2 different minority groups, if voting for the Democrat versus the Republican is what makes 2 racial groups cohesive, then I disagree with that. I would like to see, and I'm not aware of any primaries in this county in recent history where there might have been a possibly Hispanic preferred candidate and Black preferred candidate. So the fact that I saw general elections being used to find racially polarized voting would make me ask, how do you know that wasn't partisan polarized and not racially polarized?
Okay. Other than quibbling with which contest she used, did you have any other issues with the...
Well, that was the main issue. I mean, that's very important for polarization.
Are there any other issues other than that one issue that you've identified with her report?
Well, without knowing anything more about it, I think that the use of citizen voting in each population, just as a practitioner, I think I disagree with in this cycle until better data, and again, for the 2 reasons I mentioned before, the differential privacy plus the lack of recent data. I don't criticize her abilities or her conclusions. I just think that the input data is probably data I wouldn't trust to come up with the conclusion.
Are you familiar with the CHOPA method?
No.
You've never heard of the CHOPA method for estimating CVAP?
No.
Used by DOJ and widely accepted by courts? You've never heard of it?
Well, I haven't heard of it, but I think that in the case of smaller areas of geography, the census itself has said that the data is not reliable.
Okay. You mentioned that that your issue with the RPV analysis is that there might be political polarization in Nassau County rather than racial polarization. Is that correct?
That's something that would have to be determined.
Okay. And that would have to be determined because it's relevant to the analysis of whether there's racial vote dilution. Is that correct?
Racially polarized voting.
Yes. But I'm talking specifically about whether there's partisan polarization. That's relevant to you because you believe it's critical to understanding whether RPV is satisfied.
Objection. You believe? How do you know he believes it?
I'm asking.
Ask another question.
Why do we care about political polarization for the RPV question?
Well, I think the whole point of representation is not to make sure there's an equal balance of Democrats and Republicans in the legislature. It's to make sure that the voices of all the people, whether they're black or Hispanic or white or Indian or Chinese, have an equal ability to access or to use their civil rights. So in the case of concentrated groups in small geographies that tend to vote for one party or another, that doesn't necessarily prove that there's racial polarization. It just may prove that there's partisan polarization. And that is something that doesn't help the civil rights of any of the minority groups we're talking about.
And if a court finds that there's partisan polarization, is it your belief that there wouldn't be racially polarized voting, that defeats an argument of racially polarized voting?
I didn't say it causes it. The court can find whatever it finds. If they find that there's partisan polarization, there's nothing in the law that says you can't create a Democrat district or a Republican district except for the part of the municipal rule law that now says you can't. But as far as racial polarization, that has nothing to do with who people, what the makeup of the 19-seat legislature will ultimately be.
I want to quote for you a line from the John R. Lewis Voting Rights Act, again from section 17-206, which provides the cause of action against racial vote dilution. And this is one of the subsections under sub 2C.
And I would just say, too, that the John Lewis Act isn't the Voting Rights Act. So
it's the Voting Rights Act of New York, correct?
Yeah, but being required to create majority-minority districts of politically cohesive minority groups, and then I don't know how that's going to play out when it's finally implemented. So I wouldn't speculate, because I'm wondering too what if, for example, Hispanic populations in New York come from South America, Central America, Spain, all over the place. They're potentially different races, white or black. I would like to see how the John Lewis Act, which is different than the Federal Voting Rights Act, says that just because two people speak Spanish, if one group is from Spain and one is from Mexico, should that group be given a district, even if they have politically polarized ideas? And I'm interested. That's an academic thing.
It's not. It's a very, very black and white in the law. I'll read it to you.
No, I'm not talking about the law. I'm talking about, I'm interested to see how the civil rights of people, just because they speak Spanish, are going to be incorporated in this. Because in the federal law, which I've been in Section 2 cases before, I understand a history of racial discrimination against, especially in different parts of the state are different, but here, African Americans. I understand that Section 5 of the federal law gave us 3 counties and therefore the whole state coverage under Section 5 of the Federal Voting Rights Act. And I completely agree that discrimination over hundreds of years had to be solved. I think the John Lewis state law is different in that respect, because we don't have a long history like we do with African Americans of racial discrimination against Hispanics, racial discrimination against people from Mexico, Spain, Central America, South America. It's a different concept, and I'm interested. I'm telling you now, I can't answer your speculative questions. I'm interested to see how this plays out, because in 10 years, when I draw again for people, I will like to know how I can measure that compared to the federal law that's existed for so long.
Well, what I was trying to quote for you before is a line from the John R. Lewis law that squarely addresses the question that you're raising. And I quote, "Evidence that subgroups within a protected class have different voting patterns shall not be considered." End quote. It's crystal clear.
Okay.
So what that saying is that you can't consider what you're doing and pitting different minority groups against each other to decide not to draw anybody a district. That's what that language is saying, isn't it?
But I don't consider subgroups. There are no subgroups, as far as I know, of African Americans. What is the subgroup of a Hispanic? You're either I don't know, it's not a well-defined thing. And again, I'm having an academic discussion because I don't know the answers to these.
Wasn't your whole point that there are subgroups of Hispanics? Didn't you just
No,
say that? Like someone from Spain, someone from Mexico, like, aren't you saying that there are subgroups
No,
of
those are
Hispanics?
two different groups is what I'm saying. Not subgroups of some other larger group. I'm saying that they're two different groups.
Oh, so like...
I think the only thing that makes them common is they speak Spanish. My wife speaks Spanish.
Okay.
But I don't know why they're different, and I can't wait to find out when these things are fully implemented.
So, I'm sorry. So you're saying that you don't, there's this diaspora of Latinos in Nassau County that have different voting patterns or different cultures?
They probably do. And I don't know why they deserve a county legislative district under the John Lewis law, and I want to find that out. And I want the commission to do that.
Could we, fellow commission members, focus on your questions as to the map he has put forth, rather than speculate what he did in 2013 or might do in 2033? Can we just focus on the map he's proposed and whether or not you think it meets the current federal and state requirements?
Sorry, I did digress. I apologize, Commissioner. There's the only Latino up here and the only one that's ever been elected to the county legislature, and that was a long time ago. We haven't had a single Hispanic member since, considering the fact that there are 250,000 Hispanics in Nassau County, and there hasn't been a county legislator elected to the legislature since 2007. I'm interested in that.
And I just want to point out one other line from the John R. Lewis bill that I was trying to quote for you to see if you're aware of it. I'm quoting evidence that voting patterns and election outcomes could be explained by factors other than racially polarized voting, including but not limited to partisanship, shall not be considered, end quote. Are you familiar with that line from the law?
No, but I trust that it's there.
Okay. And am I understanding correctly that previously when you were talking about cohesion, you were saying, well, there might not be cohesion because it might be better explained by partisan voting outcomes. Is that correct?
That's true.
And under what I just quoted, you can't consider that under the New York Voting Rights Act. Are you aware of that? Or maybe now you are.
Well, I am now.
Okay. I'd like to introduce into the record a new version of Professor Maggleby's assessment, very short, just 2 pages. If I could ask to pass it down, and could I give one to the clerk? We have a few copies over here.
And just for the record, we had said earlier we were going to provide a copy of Dr. Gall's deck from her PowerPoint presentation. I don't know if we want to give this to the clerk, Mr. Chairman, or...
And Mr. Chairman, should I give you an extra copy to hand to the clerk? Is that acceptable?
Pulitzer's here.
I promise.
Sorry about the dangerous splinter, Chair.
Promise not intentional. Promise not intentional. So this is almost the same as the version that you reviewed earlier today. If you want to take a moment, familiarize yourself with it. I just have 1 or 2 questions about it.
Well, I'm not going to read this now, but I'll ask whatever questions you want to ask. I don't have time to analyze this. I wouldn't presume to read 2 pages and look at these graphs.
Dr. Maggleby concluded that your map is an extreme partisan gerrymander. Does that conclusion surprise you?
What's a gerrymander? How is it defined?
Dr. Maggleby ran a computer simulation of 10,000 maps, randomly simulated maps, measured the outcome of using 8 contests, endogenous contests from the last 3 cycles, and based on those outcomes, your map was an extreme outlier, biased in favor of Republicans by significant margins in every instance. Does that conclusion surprise you?
Are you referring to the 2013 map or
No,
the map
this
that's
map.
just been proposed?
This map. And
Could I ask you to drill down a little bit on that? When did he determine? When did he determine that it became illegal? What was 2013, 2014, 2015, 2016, or 20 whatever this was done, 2022? When did he make the determination it was illegal?
This memo that I just handed you is with respect to the current, to this proposed map. So about 2 hours ago,
So this is in relation to,
to what we're looking at on the screen right
yep.
now.
But the base of this is that the 2013 map is illegal.
This
So
report,
he's building another layer based upon the fact that he believes, I don't, he believes that 2013 was illegal in 2013.
that's not what the report discusses. I'm happy to talk to you about that further, but if I may ask the witness a question or two.
I need to drill down. I need to understand the question too. We frankly don't believe that it's illegal, period. That said, it makes no sense for elections to go on for 10 years, including one that ended a couple of days ago, on a map that was illegal. It doesn't make any sense. So you can't retroactively, you can't, non pro tunc for us lawyers, we like to say. You can't ascribe to it something that wasn't in existence. The reason we're doing this process is to correct a map that is imperfect. That's the purpose why we're here. We're not here to go back and look what happened 10 years ago, and then say, well, 10 years ago, if we had what we had now, that wouldn't have been any good. So let's put the context to that together.
So, Chairman Maroney,
Sure.
I appreciate your question, and I do apologize that I introduced this into the record without giving my usual spiel before doing so. So let me do that now to give you some context. What Dr. Magleby did is he took this map, which we received yesterday at around 2:30 in the afternoon or 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
What is this map? The Republican commission, the current Republican commissioner's proposed map?
Correct.
Okay.
The current proposed map that we're looking at right now. The map proposed by the Republicans. And he ran that map through the ensemble methodology, which is the methodology for evaluating partisan bias that's been accepted in the Harkenrider case by the New York Court of Appeals and accepted in other courts around the country. It's the gold standard for evaluating whether a map is a partisan gerrymander. Here's how it works. You generate a simulation, an ensemble of simulated maps, large numbers of simulated maps. In this case, he did 10,000 simulated maps. And he concluded that this proposal that we received yesterday afternoon is more extreme in favor of Republicans than the overwhelming majority of the random simulated maps. And by the way, all of the random simulated maps, in the simulations, he coded them to comply with the municipal home rule law, coded them to ensure minority representation, check all of those boxes, and make sure that they're more compact as well. Checked all those boxes and generated that simulated set of 10,000 random maps, and he concluded that this proposal that we're reviewing, the Republican proposal, is more extreme than the overwhelming majority of them. It's straightforward, and that's the same methodology that's been accepted by the New York Court of Appeals and other courts. So my question for the witness, do you have any reason to dispute that finding?
Yeah, I disagree with this methodology. I think there are probably trillions of maps that could be drawn. He chose 10,000. That's the first place I would start. Second, none of these maps were ever viewed or seen by a human. None of them took into account testimony. None of them took into account the fact that the existing map started at a baseline of legal and perfect. It started, if I'm sure, if he did this analysis on the existing boundaries, which are legal, he would have come up with the same conclusion. So that is what I would say his starting point is that his proposal would say that the existing boundaries are egregious, and therefore my map, which barely touches them, except to comply with the law, is equally egregious.
So it sounds like your issue is with the methodology.
I think that the methodology ignores the principles of why we redistrict.
Okay. So you disagree with the New York Court of Appeals decision to rely on this methodology in
I
Harkenrider?
didn't say
Come
that
on,
at all.
come on.
I mean,
come on,
that's-
come on.
Fair question.
You're not in court. There's no jury here. Just ask. Just act. Be more human.
I think anything that takes the humanity out of redistricting is a disservice to the public who needs a legislature.
All right, let's talk about the actual map. Are you able to zoom in a little bit on this so we can see the districts more clearly?
No.
Seriously?
I provided maps to the commission. This is what is on the screen. I don't know.
We can't zoom in? Like, we can't make anything out on this map. We can't zoom. I thought this was supposed to be a working session. We can't zoom in?
I don't have a button on my desk for a zoom button. Do you? If you do, zoom in.
By the way, it's the same size as what we got. So I don't know, do you want to have two standards or one?
Our expert was prepared to zoom in, answer any questions you had about any part of the map.
Yes, go ahead.
And she went through every district very clearly. We didn't have any orientation of any of the districts. I'd like to understand the configuration.
They're about the same as they are now.
You've been talking
92%.
about this since August 31st, and you don't know what's on the map? You've been crying out loud, meeting after meeting after meeting. Oh, don't interrupt me. Meeting after meeting after meeting about this being illegal. You have gone down, probably looked at every house in this map. And one more time, you're now saying it's illegal again. The changes were made. You had as much time to look at our map as we had to look at your map. We had the same opportunities, and you're now saying you have had you don't know what's on the map? You got to be kidding me.
I agree
That's
with you.
absurd.
You're 100% right, Chairman. How can we be doing this for all these months and spend hundreds of hours working on this with hundreds of people that come down and comment, and we can't tell? So maybe you can help me out. Maybe we're just stupid. So when we're looking at what number is this? So what road divides the 11th and 18th district north through south?
I don't know. Ask Dr. Gold. She didn't give us roads all the way.
Yes, she did. She asked you. She zoomed in on each specific district, went through them, told you what towns were in them, and answered your question about Austin Avenue and the other Industrial Avenue and what roads. So I'm asking we're asking your expert the same question you asked our expert. What road divides the 11th and 18th district? What road divides the 18th and the 16th district? How about that one?
It appears to me the village boundaries.
What are the boundaries?
The village boundaries divide those districts.
Okay, so what village boundary is on the eastern border of bordering Suffolk County between the 18th and 16th district? What village is that?
I'm not prepared with the detail for that.
Would it surprise you to know that there is not a village there? Okay, let's move on. So between the 16th and the 17th district, what is the village boundary there?
Well, where I could split census designated places, I did to get to equal population.
Okay, so what's the village? So there's no village boundary, right, or city?
You can presume that all but 3 of the villages are whole in this map.
So that particular boundary divides the Plainview Old Bethpage community, which is POB is one community. So you have Old Bethpage in 17 and Plainview in 16. There's no village there. My point is, we can't tell from this map what's what.
So this was supposed to be a working session. It's very difficult to have a working session without being able to zoom in, but I'm going to do my best and try and ask you some questions, and I'll orient as best I can so that members of the public who are watching know what I'm talking about. So District 1. District 1 splits the village of Hempstead in half. Is that correct? It does. You don't need to check. It splits the village of Hempstead in half. Did you make any effort to keep the village of Hempstead in a single district?
No.
Why not?
Because I wanted to keep the other villages whole, and where I was able to split places or villages, I used that to get to equal population, which is the primary goal of our redistricting.
So is it possible to achieve equal population and keeping other jurisdictions whole while also keeping the village of Hempstead in a single district? Is that possible?
Everything's possible.
Did you try?
No.
Okay. You split Uniondale into 3 districts, is that right?
I'll take your word for it.
That's correct. You split Uniondale into 3 districts. Why did you split Uniondale into 3 districts?
Everything I did for equal population.
Okay, so is it possible to achieve equal population while also keeping Uniondale in 1 district?
Specific to that question, yes. But you may not be able to achieve the municipal home rule law guidelines.
Is
if
it
you did
possible to comply with the municipal home rule law guidelines and comply with equal population and also keep Uniondale in a single district?
The map I came up with to comply with municipal home rule law is this one, and it can be modified and changed. I think that if you want to adhere to all of the sections of the municipal home rule law, that this map is close to what you would have to do.
So you didn't make any effort to try and keep Uniondale in a single district, is that correct?
Not in this first draft, no.
Okay, and you don't know whether it's possible to keep Uniondale in a single district while also complying with all the other requirements. You haven't evaluated
Well,
that, have
they
you?
wouldn't be as compliant, no. I think that
How do you know that? Did you try?
No, because I think if District 1 is a non-Hispanic black majority district, that population of District 1 splits Hempstead Village. And therefore, adding any other population that isn't more than 50% non-Hispanic black in the rest of the village would dilute that population. I wouldn't be able to create.
I'm not talking about adding Uniondale into District 1. I'm asking you a more general question. Did you make any effort to keep Uniondale whole in a single district? And I think
As a
the answer is
specific
no.
goal? No, not as a specific goal, no.
Okay. You split Freeport into 4 districts, is that right?
I'll take your word for it.
You split Freeport into 4 districts. Why did you split Freeport into 4 districts?
To get to equal population.
Is it possible to achieve equal population without splitting Freeport into 4 districts?
With that criteria, yes.
But you didn't try. You didn't even try.
I tried. I tried to make equally compact, equally populated districts that complied with all of the laws. I think this is as close as I could get in this draft.
So you made 0 effort, it sounds like.
I wouldn't say 0 effort.
Did you make any effort? Did you make any specific effort to reduce the number of splits of Freeport? Yes or no?
Oh, no, not
Okay.
after I found out
Okay.
that they would split. No, because I didn't have to.
So it's really unfortunate that you're not able to zoom in. I have a zoomed-in version in my computer because we do have the data that we've been able to analyze. I'm going to zoom into a specific portion. We're still talking about District 1, the border between District 1 and Freeport. You're not going to be able to see this because for some reason you don't have access to the roads in your own map, so I'll walk you through what it is that I'm looking at right now. Let's say you're in Freeport. You're driving south on North Long Beach Avenue. You're starting at Mount Joy Avenue. As you drive south, left and right side of the block of the street, that's District 1. Then the first block you hit is Moore. And as soon as you hit Moore Avenue, the right side of the street is District 5, the left side of the street is District 1. Then you hit Evans Avenue, the very next block. At Evans, the right side is District 5, the left side is at Evans, both the left and right side are both District 5. You continue driving down Evans a block, you hit Seaman Avenue. On Seaman, for some reason, District 1 curves around. The left side of the street's in District 1, the right side of the street's in District 5. You go the very next block, you hit Maxon Avenue, and after you hit Maxon Avenue, both the left and the right side of the street are back in District 1. And then you finally hit Lena Avenue. So this is like all over the course of 6 blocks. And once you hit Lena Avenue, the left and the right side are both in District 5. So every single block that you drive, it's switching from one side of the street being both, the other side of the street, back and forth, back and forth. How do you justify that?
These districts are legal. They're equally populated.
No.
And it
I'm not
follows
asking
the law.
general. We want to talk about the specific map. That's a very specific point.
Can you
How
allow
do
him
you
to
justify
Can
that?
you allow him to finish before you start interrupting him? He started an answer and you shot right at him. Let him answer it.
Go ahead. How do you justify the specific 6-block area along North Long Beach Avenue that I'm referring to, along the border of District 1 and District 5? How do you justify that bizarre zigzag pattern?
All of these districts are within 1% of the ideal population. All of them are equally populated. All of them adhere to the municipal home rule law. And that is the way you do that is to draw districts at the census block level, and there's a boundary on every street, usually, between districts. And where there's a boundary, everywhere in Nassau County and New York City and upstate, there are lines that aren't perfectly straight or perfectly circular districts, and because we're not drawing rectangles, that's always going to happen.
Did you make any effort to draw the boundary between District 1 and District 5 along a single road rather than zigzagging back and forth every single block along different roads? Did you make any effort?
I drew districts to comply with equal population, not to adhere to specific street names.
And did you evaluate whether it's possible to comply with equal population while also drawing districts that don't have such irregular boundaries, specifically along the border between District 1 and District 5?
I tried to comply with all of the municipal home rule law and federal and state laws.
So it sounds like you made no effort to clean up that boundary. You made no
Well,
effort
if you
to see if
pick
it's
one
possible. Let me
as-
finish the question,
Okay.
please. You made no effort to clean up that boundary. You made no effort to see whether it's possible to clean up the boundary while also complying with the other requirements.
If you make condition A of the municipal home rule law that all boundaries have to be continuously on a single street until that street ends, then I would have done that. But it's not part of the municipal home rule law, so that's not a consideration when I'm drawing shapes. I'm not drawing lines.
District 2, it's pretty irregularly shaped, isn't it? Let me ask a different question. District 2, it crosses into all three towns in Nassau County, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Why did you draw a district that crosses into all three towns in Nassau County?
Because it preserved the 90% probably of the existing core of District 2.
So you prioritize preserving the core of District 2 over
Equal population was why I prioritized.
No, excuse me, let me finish the question. I asked you, why did you draw a district that crosses into three different towns, and you said because it preserves District 2. Did I understand you correctly?
No, you didn't.
So why did you draw District 2 crossing into three different towns?
In my process of drawing all the districts, I started with the existing boundaries and then made the villages whole and then made equal populated districts. And that's the evolution of District 2.
So District 2, the reason that District 2 is in three different towns is because you based it on the current version of District 2. Is that correct?
Which is required by law, yes.
Simple yes or no question. The reason District 2 is
it
in
wasn't
three different
simple.
towns is because you based it on the current district. Is that correct?
If I may, you can't force the map maker into answering a question with a yes or no if it believes something more than that is necessary. The purpose here is not cross-examination to say, what did you not do? What did you not consider? We've proffered a proposed draft map, which the map maker has indicated was only a draft and is now subject to further considerations that we might have about communities of interest that he did not take into account. And I think we're trying to turn this into a trial is not the appropriate form.
No, but it's a yes or no question. If I ask you if your mic is on or off, telling me it's plugged in is not an answer. So it's a yes or no question.
I'll ask it a different way.
If you want me to answer yes or no, I will answer yes or no, but it won't be as informative.
I understand. I'll ask it a different way. So when you drew District 2, you prioritized preserving the core over respecting town boundaries. Is that correct?
No, I think when I was drawing, I probably didn't. I made village boundaries because villages are a new part of the law, and the village shapes and sizes in Nassau County were problematic. So I probably, and as I look at the map now, the portion that's in Oyster Bay, I'm guessing, is possible to take out of Oyster Bay. But preserving the town boundaries was a consideration, but in this case, I crossed the town line that hopefully we'll be able to correct.
So I'm going to give an answer to the question that actually that Mr. Schaefer asked for himself. That little triangle that you see going into crossing the line into Oyster Bay, that was actually put there at the request of former legislator Bob Troiano. That is a portion of homes and houses that are connected right to Newcastle. And that was his request 10 years ago. He was sitting roughly where you were sitting, and I was there where Mr. McKenna is standing. And he asked if we could change that and put that back in. And we did. And that was one of the reasons why no one ever challenged this map, is because these people being from the Democratic Party and the Republican Party would put things together, and they came together. That's exactly why that is there. That's a piece of Newcastle that crosses the town line. It's the same thing happened if you look up north, where you see the town line that cuts District 16 apart. That is the same sort of situation that arose. A lot of these things we hear. Mr. Mejias gave testimony in Glen Cove and talked at length about blocks and sections of block 10 years ago, talking about the water system and everything else to keep that together. And you know, this is how this thing came about. It didn't come about because somebody walked into a room, lit a cigar, and said, how can we screw those people? What happened was it was a genuine hearing, and the changes were done genuinely. And that one in particular by Bob Troiano was something that he praised everybody for doing it. So keep in mind that this map that is now been declared illegal from, I don't know, time immemorial by Magleby and yourself, was a creation of the aggregate of testimony that took place over a series of months that I participated in, that Mr. Mejias participated in, and lots of other people participated in it. And then nobody challenged the thing after it was over. Nobody. Now go back to, you can finish your questions.
So Mr. Schaefer, we just got, I think, some interesting community of interest testimony from our chair. Did you take that community of interest testimony into account when you drew District 2 into 3 different towns?
I said before, I didn't take any of that into account at this stage of the process.
So I appreciate our chair's contribution to the record with respect to that triangle that juts into Oyster Bay. My questions right now are not about that testimony, it's about what you considered in preparing this map. So in drawing District 2, did you prioritize preserving the core of District 2 over respecting town boundaries?
I don't think I preserved one over the other. I think that preserving town boundaries is a goal. I think that preserving the existing districts is a goal. I don't, in my head, I don't say, at least not until the end, this is more important than that, so when I'm drawing, that's not what my thought process is.
When you drew District 2, did you give any consideration to preserving town boundaries?
No, as I just said, when I'm drawing, I'm considering getting to equal population. After I'm done drawing, I can evaluate, did I split any villages? Did I break any town boundaries? Is there anything that I did? You know, it's not that every census block I select on my map, I refer back to the MHRL to say, okay, does this do this, this, or this? I draw the first iteration of my map. I look to see what needs to be changed. I do it again and again, and then get to this point. If you have a flaw in crossing that boundary, I'd be happy to fix it, because I knew and know every time I do this that there's going to be parts of the map that the commissions that I work for don't like, and we can correct those things. So if the town boundary is important to you and the commission, we can take it out of Oyster Bay.
I see that you split up Westbury and Newcastle. They were together in the same district previously. You split them up. Is that correct?
I'll take your word for it.
Why did you split up Westbury and Newcastle?
For equal population and to preserve the cores of districts.
Are you aware that we received significant public testimony urging
No,
the
I
commission?
can't. I've told you that public testimony has not been part of the process up to this point.
Okay. Are you going to? What's your timeline for modifying this map based on public testimony? There was a lot of public testimony.
My timeline is your timeline. When you need to have a final plan, I will have a final plan.
Have you been given a timeline yet?
They told me to come here today, and then we'll find out what happens after today.
You split the Lakeview community up, didn't you? You could take my word for it. You split the Lakeview community up. We got a lot of testimony to keep Lakeview together. Why did you split Lakeview up?
Equal population.
Is it possible to keep Lakeview together while also achieving equal population?
Everything is possible in these maps.
Did you make any effort to keep Lakeview together while also achieving equal population?
My answer is going to be the same for every specific area.
Well, I'm going to ask you for every specific area if you made any effort to keep those areas whole while also achieving equal population. Did you make any effort to keep Lakeview whole while also complying with equal population and the other requirements under the Municipal Home Rule Law?
I can tell you that the give and take of creating equally populated districts, preserving the villages, creating the minority districts that were created, the African American district, created this map. Specific districts, I didn't spend, except for District 1, where after one of my early iterations I found out was close enough to 50% that I could probably get it over 50%. Except for District 1, I don't think I spent any time on any one specific district to make any one specific district more compact, more straight lines, more anything, more, you know, I didn't split the villages because the law says not to. Is once I got to a point where I was within 1% deviation for all the districts, I named it Plan 5 and I brought it here.
So you made no effort to keep Lakeview whole while also complying with the other considerations that you've listed?
I made a lot of effort to come up with Plan 5.
I'm talking specifically about Lakeview. You made no effort to keep Lakeview whole while
Well,
also
to the extent that
complying
Lakeview is part
with-
of Nassau County, I spent a lot of time drawing this map. So yes, I spent a lot of effort in keeping all of the villages whole, to keeping all of the districts compact, contiguous, preserve their cores. And after considering everything that the law required, this is the plan that I've come up with.
All right, I'm going to move on to District 3.
Could I just ask a question to Mr. Mejias as the chairman of your delegation?
Yes.
How many times are we going to ask the same questions
Well-
and just get argumentative with the witness?
Well, you see, you keep asking the same question, but it doesn't get answered. So when you ask a question about Lakeview, Mr. Schaefer, specifically about Lakeview, right, and you say I did a general map that I think is legal for everything, that's not a question.
No,
See,
it
because
isn't.
if we were in a court of law, I would move to strike your answer as not responsive. The judge would uphold my objection and direct you to answer the question. And if you kept answering questions in a non-responsive manner, he would sanction you, or she would sanction you.
There'll be no
hold on.
badgering witnesses. Stop the badgering.
I'm not
You are badgering them.
I didn't badger him. I'm asking.
You are yelling
no,
at people.
No,
Stop
no,
it.
no, no,
Just
no.
stop it.
Well, apparently,
Just
Mr. Schaefer
talk
cannot.
nice.
Mr.
That's what's so hard about that.
We're trying, and we're asking the same question over and over, very nicely.
Please do
And
it
Mr.
without yelling.
And Mr. Schaefer won't answer the question. I'm whispering now so that you can pay attention. Mr. Schaefer, specifically to Lakeview, answer the question, and we won't have to ask it 5 times. I understand that you don't want to answer the question and why, but unfortunately, you have to.
If I was a
because that's
judge,
why
I
we're
would
here.
strike that from the record.
Okay, well, maybe you would, but you're not the judge, even though you're ruling on your own objections like a judge. But that's fine. But Mr. Schaefer, I would ask you to just answer the question. It's not that hard. So what? You didn't consider keeping Lakeview together. Just say it. Answer the question. All right? Even though everyone wants Lakeview together, we ask you when the final map is going to be done. I don't know. You tell me. No one told you that November 21st we're voting on these maps? Did anyone tell you that, Mr. Schaefer?
I was aware that it was in November.
Okay, so at some point in November, you're going to consider public comment?
If asked by the commission, yes.
Okay. If the commission doesn't ask you, are you going to consider the public comment when submitting your final map?
Don't answer that.
Why not?
Because what he says to the commission is none of your business.
Why not?
It's
public record.
It's not.
But the people are paying him.
If you're asking him to talk about strategy, then you're off base.
He's not your lawyer. There's no privilege here. I'm sorry. We can ask him questions. This is a public forum. And I want to know when his final map is going to be done. You said sometime in November. So let's say it's before December 1st, okay? November 21st is when we're voting on this. Okay? So we're voting on it November 21st. This is not a hypothetical.
Well, what it is each of the two sides, your delegation and our delegation, have separately engaged map makers. The purpose of tonight is for us to have presented what our map maker has reported to us. We have presented that. The purpose of tonight is not to cross-examine or be on trial or say what he did or didn't consider. We're here to say, here's the map that our map maker has presented in draft form to us, in which he has told us he's now waiting for further instructions from our delegation as to what else he should do. So that's where we are.
Well, it's a work session.
It's a work session in which if you have a suggestion that you'd like to make, if you'd like to say, move this line from this corner to that corner, change this, change that, if those are your suggestions, we'll be happy to hear them.
But that's
so
not what a work
far,
session is.
You just continue to question him as to what did he not consider in drafting this document. This document is the document that he's produced. This is what he's put forth as a draft, and he's now waiting for further input from the Republican delegation. And we haven't given him that further input yet.
Well, this is a work session. And a work session means we can ask questions. And the reason we all voted unanimously to provide each other with each other's maps the day before is so that our consultants could analyze them and we can come here and ask questions. Those questions deserve answers. The public wants to know what these answers are. So you can't give a non-answer and then say, don't keep asking the same question. If you're not going to answer it, you should answer it. So I'm just wondering when are you going to have a final report done?
And
you've
asked that question a number of times.
And he hasn't answered it.
He's not the one who will be answering.
He said sometime in November, actually, he did answer it.
He'll produce his final when this delegation tells him to produce his final, which we haven't done yet. That's the answer. So now, again, this is not here to be badgered in what we view as badgering. He's here to present what he's produced. He has presented it. And we're not going to let this go on forever. At some point in the game, we're going to say, that's enough. Now, we think you've been badgering and trying to cross-examine him rather than to just ask him questions or make suggestions to him about what might further be done in a further iteration. So let's go forward from there.
And we're not going to let Mr. Schaefer filibuster and not answer questions and answer questions with non-answers. And there is some accountability here to the people of Nassau County who are spending $1 million to have these two maps made. So answer the questions. That's all we're asking.
Let's move on to District 3. District 3, it looks like it connects, it splits up Elmont, North Valley Stream, and then connects down into Inwood. Am I seeing that correctly?
Yes?
Why are you connecting Elmont and Valley Stream to Inwood?
To get to equal population.
Are there any other considerations other than achieving equal population that motivated your decision to connect Valley Stream and Elmont to Inwood?
To preserve the cores of villages, cores of existing districts, to keep the villages whole, and to get to the population.
Okay, so the three reasons for connecting Valley Stream and Elmont down to Inwood that I've heard you say is number 1, equal population, number 2, preserving cores, and number 3, respecting village boundaries. Is that correct?
As I was drawing, yes.
Are there any other considerations that you factored in when connecting Valley Stream and Inwood, Valley Stream and Elmont down to Inwood?
Not while drawing, no.
Okay. Would it have been a more compact district if you kept Elmont and Valley Stream whole rather than having an appendage going down to Inwood?
I don't know. It's a mathematical formula. I'd have to.
So you sitting here right now, you cannot tell us whether it's possible that whether it would be more compact if you kept Elmont and Valley Stream whole and didn't connect down into Inwood. You can't tell us that?
There are 9 algorithms I use, and honestly, I don't know even how to do the algorithms on pen and paper. I use my computer to do those algorithms.
How many years have you been doing this?
1990 was my first cycle.
And you can't eyeball a map and say, yeah, that would probably be more compact?
Yeah, that's the 10th way of measuring compactness. So in one of the measures of compactness, maybe it would be, maybe it wouldn't be. I'd have to see them side by side. But the other 9 may show a different...
Does the Valley Stream Elmont portion of the district connect to the Inwood portion of the district by land?
I can't tell from this.
You don't know the answer to that question?
Not right now, no.
I have zoomed in on my own computer, and I'll tell you that the only way to get from the Valley Stream Elmont portion of the district to Inwood is to cross a creek and then to cross a golf course. There's no road that connects them. Are you aware of that?
I am now.
Does that concern you that there's no road that connects the Valley Stream Elmont portions of the district to Inwood?
Concern me?
Does it concern you as a
Does not
professional?
concern me.
It doesn't concern you that there's no road that connects them? That the only way to get from one part of the district to the other is to cross a creek and to cross a golf course?
There's a congressional district in Hawaii that's dozens of miles of road, or without roads, to get to the next island. I don't necessarily, in every case, consider water or golf course as making a district not contiguous. I think all these districts are contiguous.
Are there any islands in Elmont, Valley Stream, or Inwood?
Excuse me if I may. I note that we're already 20 minutes past the ending time for this evening. Do you have any estimate as to how much more you would like to continue to question what is not a witness but a presenter of a map?
Well, I was hoping this would be a work session. It's not.
Well,
It's not.
that's
And
unfortunate
I
that
was
you don't
hoping-
see it that way.
It's not that I don't see it. A work session is where you can work together to make changes in real time, to zoom in, to roll up our sleeves. That is not what you were prepared to do today, which is unfortunate.
Do you have a proposal to make a change in what he's presented?
I've been listing so many issues with what he's presented, so many legal defects, and I hope he takes it into account as he redoes the map. I'll continue. If you're concerned about time, let me continue with my question.
Let me just remind you, we were asking whether or not there were any islands in Valley Stream and Elmont, since you made the comparison to Hawaii. Can we get an answer to that question, Mr. Schaefer? I mean, there might be some water holes on the in the golf course, but I don't know if there are any island greens.
All of the districts in this plan are contiguous by law and by my practice.
For the record, golf courses apparently are okay to do that because in North Hempstead, the Democrats drew a map that they have to go through a golf course in order to get to one side or the other side. So we can nitpick all we want. Just the big picture here is to step back from this and take a look at, and let's look at our goal. Our goal is to come up with a map that is legitimate, that is benefit to the people of the Nassau County and the people who live in Nassau County. We have different approaches to this, obviously, because your map presentation and our map presentation are miles apart. How that's going to change, either in bits and pieces or in large chunks, I can't tell you that yet. But it would be more productive, I believe, to rather than drill down into something that you already know the answer to make sure that Mr. Schaefer will give the same answer that you know it had to be. You have it in front of you. You have this larger size. He's explained to you what his theory was. He explained to you about majority districts. He's explained to you about the keeping villages whole. And ironically, the same villages that Dr. Gull chopped up were the same ones that Mr. Schaefer chopped up. So it seems like we're going nowhere. We're going in circles. Let's just, if you can just drill down as to what your goal is. I mean, I know your goal is to go to court. Mr. Matthias has already said that.
Well, I said that's your goal. You're pretty much guaranteeing it, but but
what's frustrating to me,
I like the whoopee. Now, Mr. You're out of
Okay.
order. You're out of order.
okay, we cannot hear. This session is not to hear. We are not hearing public comment at this session. So I would respectfully ask that the public please keep their voices down. Okay, and by the way, just for the record, Mr. Chairman, you referenced Legislator Troiano earlier. The vote on the current map was taken on March 5th, 2013, and at that time, on the map itself, Legislator Troiano voted quote, "I am proud to cast a loud, emphatic, and resounding no." So for the record, Mr. Troiano voted against the current map.
I recall that as well, but then nobody went to court.
Let's move on to District 4. Are you aware that District 4, it crosses over water to grab up some land in Baldwin.
Yes,
Okay, and you're aware that there's no road that connects that part of District 4 to Baldwin.
I'll take your word for it.
Why does District 4 cross into Baldwin?
Yeah, equal population is contiguous.
Was it possible to guarantee equal population without crossing over water into Baldwin?
Just for equal population? Yeah.
Did you make any effort to keep District 4 without crossing over into Baldwin?
Specifically, I didn't make any effort to put it in or take it out of Baldwin, no.
The section of Baldwin that you include has 2 people. Are you aware of that?
Nope,
So it was critical to add those 2 people for equal population purposes? Is that what you're saying?
that's what I'm saying.
It also crosses into Freeport. You aware of that?
Yes,
And it jumps over the water without any road or land connecting it. It jumps over the water to snatch up some land in Freeport, correct?
yes,
Why?
equal population.
Is it possible to satisfy the equal population requirement without jumping over the water to snatch up a tiny bit of land in Freeport?
Yes, and we can fix that.
You haven't made any effort to fix that yet.
I haven't been asked to.
Well, you're being asked to.
Actually, the Democratic delegation can speak with their map maker. We'll speak to our map maker. Right now, we are interested in your comments, your suggestions, but at the end of the day, our map maker will respond to our delegation, just as your map maker will respond to your delegation. So I appreciate that you're asking the Republican delegation to direct their map maker to do something, but please don't try to direct our map maker.
No, that's what we're making. We were asked for suggestions. We're just making suggestions.
Let's turn to District 9. Am I seeing this district correctly, that it connects Mineola and New Hyde Park with like the Plandome Manhasset area up in the northern part of the town of North Hempstead by looping east and picking up slivers of Albertson, Searingtown, Roslyn Heights? Is that what it's doing?
Yes,
What was your basis for drawing such an irregular district?
preserving its core,
Any other bases other than preserving the core?
well, keeping the village whole, keeping the population close to zero.
Anything else?
Not that I recall.
Are you aware of any communities of interest that justify this bizarre configuration?
I don't think it's bizarre. It's the same district, or very close to the same district that exists now.
If I may, I think if your researcher goes back and checks the record of the hearing, he or she will find out that the Kings Point to Manhasset district was created with a strong request by the people who lived on the Great Neck Peninsula. And if you look across to the other side to District 11, which follows this suit, you'll see that that district, which is currently represented by Delia Derigi Whitten, has a long history of a coalition to preserve Hempstead Harbor, and it happens to be in the 11th district where Great Glen Cove is. Mr. Mejias actually testified. So if you take those 2 districts and you have and you need population to participate in District 9, you're going to have to create one of those little districts. I bring to mind that there's something similar to that in the map created by Dr. Gall, and that is your district number 10, ironically, where it's a long, narrow district with some odd changes to it. It happens because whether we like it or not, whether we think it's great or not, the requirements of districting are restrictive. You have to do certain things. You have to have equal population. Mimi Johnson, who spoke at length at a couple of hearings, 2 hearings, didn't like the idea that she was across the street from the district that she wanted to be in. She didn't want to be she wanted to be in a different district. That's my recollection. If I'm off, I'm not off by much. the line's got to go somewhere. They don't draw themselves. The population is set by census. The state of New York narrowed the ability to have a greater latitude in doing this when they enacted that law last year called the Municipal Home Rule Law. They further, in particular, when you have to recognize the villages, it gets a cascade of small moves and small maneuvers, and it's not that simple to do. But you have to keep in mind that these lines were not drawn pell-mell in the back room. They were drawn after discussion with people, whether they voted in favor of it or not. They got things they asked for. They asked for changes. That was a public who asked the changes, not commissioners. And I think if you keep it in line with that notion, that the purpose of districting is to make sure that everybody is equal.
So, Mr. Schaefer, we just got some communities of interest testimony from our chairman about why District 9 was drawn in the way it was 10 years ago. Did that community of interest information play any role in your decision to draw District 9 the way you did?
Not in this plan, no.
Okay, thank you.
Except
and
that it was a preserved core.
Yeah, but that was my only question. I'm trying to understand your basis for drawing District 9. We had some helpful community and interesting community of interest testimony from our chairman. That testimony was not relevant, so that's helpful to
Well,
know.
the one thing I can say, having time to look then at the map, there's something like 30 incorporated villages. I just did a quick count. The only territory that isn't a complete village in Hempstead creates that line. If you're going to preserve villages, if it's practicable to preserve villages in North Hempstead, this district keeps some of the villages whole, takes some of the census designated places which are able to be split, but because there are fewer building blocks in North Hempstead, because of the large number of incorporated villages that border each other, there's fewer choices. And so to create this plan, to create District 10 and 11, automatically creates District 9.
I want to turn to District 14. This district connects Garden City and Stewart Manor, which is in the town of Hempstead, up to Carl Place and Westbury in the town of North Hempstead, and then cuts through the middle of Hicksville to capture part of Bethpage. Does that sound about right to you?
Yep.
Okay. So this district, again, a second district that crosses into all three towns, correct?
Yes, it did in the original plan as well,
Why did you draw a district that cuts across all three towns?
because that's what the core of the existing district was.
So with respect to drawing of District 14, you prioritize preservation of cores over preserving town boundaries. Is that correct?
No, I did them equally.
In what way did you respect the redistricting principle of preserving the town boundaries?
I didn't add a town boundary crossing.
Okay.
The same numbers there were before. There's not more.
How many towns do we have in Nassau County?
3 towns, 2 cities.
Can I?
How many towns does this district touch? All 3?
No more than it did before.
Can I give you another little bit of information? Where across the town's line, that little line.
Chairman, if I may, this is not relevant to the question.
I'm going to get this in whether you like it or not. So, that line that crossed the Nassau, that crossed the border between North Hempstead and Oyster Bay, was breached in the year 2000 by the Democrats when they controlled the pen. That's how that breach took place.
And that was a bad thing? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm just stating a fact.
Okay. Well, you seemed pretty angry when you were saying it, so perhaps you can direct your map
I'm
maker
not
to try
angry.
and fix that breach.
I'm not angry. I'm firm.
Are you familiar with the 5 towns?
Yes.
What are the 5 towns?
I wouldn't name them and get them wrong, so you can name them for me.
It's all right. Where in Nassau County are the 5 towns located?
In the southwest.
Okay. And do you understand the 5 towns to be a community of interest?
I do. I don't know if the commission does.
Did you make any effort to preserve the 5 towns let me withdraw. How many districts did you draw in the 5 towns?
I don't know. maybe 2.
4. You split the 5 towns into 4 different districts. Are you aware of that?
If you say so.
Did you make any attempt to unify the 5 towns in less than 4 districts?
I got no direction to do that, no.
Okay, so
They weren't before, so I didn't do it now.
Just one correction, it was 2003, not 2000.
you split Hicksville into how many districts?
I don't know.
You split Hicksville into 4 districts. Are you aware of that? Do you have reason
I
to
am
believe
now.
it? Okay. 5? Oh, I miscounted. 5 districts. Do you know how many districts Hicksville was split into in the 2013 plan?
No.
3. So you increased the number of splits of Hicksville from 3 to 5. You made it worse, right?
I wouldn't say worse.
Why did-
Hicksville is a designated place. It's not part of the guidelines I put on myself to draw this plan.
So you made no effort to try and reduce the number of splits of Hicksville, is that correct?
Well, Hicksville didn't become a incorporated village, so it's not required to remain whole or split.
That's a helpful explanation, but I just want to make sure I understand. You did not make any effort to reduce the
No,
number of
I did
splits
not.
of Hicksville?
No.
Correct. Did you make any effort to reduce the number of splits of East Meadow, which you split 3 times?
No.
Did you make any effort to reduce, to keep Syosset and Woodbury together?
No.
Did you make any effort to keep Plainview and Old Bethpage together?
No.
The Roslyn East Hills community split into 5 districts, 9, 10, 11, 16, 18. Did you make any effort to keep that community in fewer than 5 districts?
No.
Mr. Schaefer, you said you did the map 10 years ago, correct?
In 2012 and 2013, the one that's passed now, yes.
And there have been changes in the law since then, correct?
In the state law, yes.
And you've worked for, you've done maps for other municipalities, correct?
Yes.
Like Brook-
Counties, towns,
So like Brookhaven,
yes.
and who hired you there?
The town board,
Okay. And it was a Republican town board, correct?
I don't know.
You don't know if the board you worked for was Republican or Democrat in the town of Brookhaven?
I didn't ask them.
Okay. Were you ever hired by the New York State Senate Republicans?
Yes,
And in the town of Hempstead, you were hired by the town of Hempstead as well, correct?
10 years ago. Yeah, 10 years ago.
And that was a Republican town board then as well.
Okay.
I mean, you're aware of that, correct?
When I get a contract, I'm happy to get it. And if
You've
they were
also-
Democrat, I would have taken the contract.
Have you ever taken a contract with a Democrat?
Lots of times.
Who?
10 years ago, I think, and I don't have my notes, so if I get it wrong, Sullivan County, I think. A lot of bipartisan commissions. I did legal work for NAACP in Albany. I can't remember if Dutchess is Democrat or Republican. Ulster County. I do math, and people hire me to do math.
When Dutchess, the county attorney, was Republican that hired you, correct?
The cycle? That was a nonpartisan commission, this cycle. That was an absolutely nonpartisan.
And the last time?
It may have been the county attorney.
And you said you'd worked for Democrats in Sullivan County 10 years ago?
I think it was Sullivan County, if I'm recalling it correctly.
But you don't know if Brookhaven was Republican.
I didn't know it, if you're telling me it's Republican now, I got the contract. Like I said, I do math and draw maps. I don't,
You only do
No.
math and draw maps?
no, for redistricting, that's what I do. I don't do any subjective work. I don't decide where the lines go. I let my clients do that.
No, but you do have other businesses, correct? You have a consulting
Yeah,
group?
I do statistical work for various politicians of both parties.
Skyline Political?
Yes.
Well, and you do polling, correct?
Mr. Schaefer, as far as I'm concerned, speaking for the Republican delegation, I think the questions are going beyond what we brought you here to do. So I'm going to direct you not to answer.
Well, You could direct them not to answer, and you can decide not to answer, and you can put that on the record. But you do own a group that does polling, correct? You own a political consulting firm, don't you? Yes.
I've directed him not to answer.
Okay, so you're being directed not to answer the questions about. Do you own SkylinePolitical.com?
Don't respond.
What is the name of the company that you own that has the contract with the Republican delegation of the commission?
What is the question?
What is it? You have a contract, correct, to do this? Is that yes or no?
Yes,
Okay. And is that contract with you personally or with your company?
my corporation, yes.
And what corporation is that?
Skyline Demographic Consultants.
Okay. And and you also own Skyline Political Consultants, don't you?
I told you, don't
Okay.
respond.
And
Keep it inside this map, and try not, and look, Dave, we've been around a long time.
speak for yourself. I'm still a little young.
Well, maybe I've been around longer than you. Maybe that's what makes me kinder than you. And
I'm a divorce lawyer.
I
It's
think,
not in my nature.
well, that's okay. Somebody's got to do the dirty work. What I think, if we just stop trying to score points against the witness, and if you want to score points for what you're here for, which is to draw a map. It is it's insolent to think that you can go off where you're going right now and think that somehow or other that's cool and okay to do because you don't like what he's saying.
I would welcome
Enough.
Enough. I would welcome
Enough.
the
Keep
same
it within
question.
the bounds of why we're here. Enough is enough.
The reason that we're here.
You're not here to figure out how he makes his money outside of what we're doing here. And that's what you're asking.
Okay, well,
it's none of your business.
Someone's motivation and impetus relates to that bias. I would welcome the Republican commissioners to ask any question that we're asking, including all of my pointed questions that you may not like, of our consultants. We'll bring them back. Dr. Gall has never worked for a partisan organization before the Democrats hired here. Same thing with Mr. Magleby. Our goal here is to create a nonpartisan, independent map that complies with the law. And to the extent that there are biases in the process, the people deserve to know what those biases are and who has those biases. The Democratic side, the Republican side, our consultants, your consultants, the people paying the $1 million deserve to know whether or not we're truly doing this in a nonpartisan manner, because that's what the law tells us we have to do. So in following the law, I want to know if there's a particular bias.
I'm asking you to ask questions in the same tone in which we ask questions of Dr. Gall, and you're not. You're way over the line, and you know it. And you just don't care because you want to sue us so bad that you'll say anything to do it. And that's what's going on here. Leave the man alone.
It's quite the opposite, Mr. Chairman, and as a
I
former...
would disagree with that.
Well,
you must be listening to different
now
people
you're being unkind to me. As a former county attorney, as a member of this commission who sat through countless hours before the public, where the public gave testimony of what was important to them, it is clear to me, after hearing what Mr. Schaefer has said, that none of that was considered in drawing this map. Instead, you've based this current map on the map drawn in 2013, and that map, as we pointed out, we've had our experts do analysis, is illegal, and you are jeopardizing the county with a potential lawsuit for not taking that under consideration, and it's scary to me.
We are aware that you hold that opinion, and I think you have made your opinion clear. So repeating the same questions to get the same answer, to have your opinion restated 20 times, is pointless. This gentleman reports to the Republican delegation. We've made him available to answer questions about the contours of the map that he has presented to you. You ask questions which you think have shown deficiencies. All right, that's your opinion. That's your inferences. That's your conclusions. But we're now very near the end of making him available to you for further badgering.
So, okay, that's
Out of
that-
order.
All right, all right, Mr. McKenna, please, that is completely out of order. Please sit down. Please sit down. Look, Mr. McKenna, I don't want to have to ask that you be escorted from the chamber, okay? You are out of order. You are out of order, Mr. McKenna. That's enough. We are here for you to attack any particular commissioner. Stop. Yes, you are. Please, Mr. McKenna, I'm going to ask the chairman to have you escorted from the chamber if you do not stop. You are out of order. Thank you. I apologize to Commissioner B for anybody that said anything to him that's out of order from the public.
One more outburst, and I will not allow you to say, I am not, that you're going to go. Enough is enough. Yeah, wouldn't be the first place you've been thrown out of. So let it be the last.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to ask you to please have Mr. McKenna escorted from the chamber because he is disrupting these proceedings at the taxpayer's expense. We have two officers here in the chamber. Mr. McKenna continues to be out of order. I will ask you respectfully, Mr. Chairman, to have him removed from the chamber.
The police officers, please escort him out of the room. Please get him out of the room.
Just a reminder to the public that all commissioners on both sides here are doing this voluntarily on their own time and are not paid. And as much as we bicker and fight with each other, I do have a tremendous amount of respect for all the commissioners who sit here today, giving their time to the public. So, thank you all for being here.
I would join in that.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Schaefer, have you ever been asked by any organization, partisan or not partisan, to draw a map that favored one particular party or another?
Not specifically, no.
Have you been asked to draw a map that has a majority of Republican or Democratic legislators or districts?
No.
Have you been asked to take partisanship into account when you're drawing a map?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I believe that's all the questions we have for Mr. Schaefer. I believe that's all he could probably take anyway.
Are there
Thank
any
you for
questions
coming.
on this side?
Thank you, Mr. Schaefer.
Thank you, Mr. Schaefer.
Before I move to adjourn, I would remind people that we're having a hearing on the 16th day of November in this very chamber, and we're having probably our final meeting as a group on the 21st day of November as well.
I just have a procedural question. So
So please, Ms. Meriday.
Well, I'm just about to get to that, ma'am. So I have a procedural question. If the maps from either side are revised, are we bringing our people back? Are they going to be witness testimony, or is there going to be any explanation to the public at the next hearing? What changes to the maps were made and why?
That's a good question. I don't have an answer for you yet, but we will work together like we have up till now on this issue.
Yeah, well, I'm going to ask if we do make some changes to our maps, even if we don't, I'm going to have Mr. Magleby and Ms. Gall available on the 16th for the public hearing, and I would ask that you have Mr. Schaefer available as well.
Not a problem.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Get home safe, everybody.